What if the one night meant to bring peace was actually designed to destroy you? What would you do if every smile around you hid a blade, and the people you called family were the first to twist it? In a world where power is everything and blood ties are just weapons waiting to be drawn, one wrong step could cost you your legacy, your future. Tonight, under the glitter of chandeliers and the murmur of champagne toasts, a trap is set. The betrayal is public, the humiliation complete, and when the knives come out, no one will come to your defense. Not unless you fight. Not unless you rise. Betrayal is easy. Revenge, that takes power. Stay. Watch it all unfold. The chandeliers shimmered like 1,000 false stars above the grand ballroom of the Marlowe Hotel, casting soft golden light over silk gowns and tailored suits. Laughter flowed as easily as champagne, and in the center of it all stood Judith Quinn, radiant in emerald green, accepting praise and gifts, as if she were a queen on her throne. Ivy Quinn hesitated at the entrance, the soft click of her heels drowned beneath the orchestra's waltz. She smoothed the fabric of her black dress, elegant but understated, and inhaled deeply. This isn't about the past. It's about moving forward. It's about family. Her heart pounded as she crossed the threshold, drawing a few lingering stares. Some were curious. Others, cold. She approached the crowd, offering polite smiles, nodding at familiar faces from Houston's business elite. Tonight was supposed to be about healing. About closure. It had been a year since her father, Thomas Quinn, died, and everything changed. Judith spotted her from across the room. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Ivy, darling. You came." "Of course," Ivy replied softly. "I thought maybe it was time." Judith's eyes glittered. "Yes. Time, indeed." As the clock neared 10, glasses clinked and music faded into a gentle hush. A waiter dimmed the lights, and all eyes turned toward the grand staircase where Judith now stood, perfectly poised, Pamela by her side. "Thank you all for being here on this special night," Judith began, her voice honeyed. "It means the world to celebrate with those who've stood by me during such a turbulent year." A ripple of agreement passed through the room. "And speaking of turbulence," she continued, her tone sharpening, "it's time I addressed something that has weighed heavily on me, and perhaps on many of you." Ivy's brow furrowed. Something was wrong. "I cannot stay silent any longer," Judith declared, eyes locking on Ivy. "As many of you know, my late husband entrusted our family company, Quinn Industries, to his daughter. What you may not know is how she came to power." A hush fell. Ivy froze. Through manipulation, through deceit, through exploiting a man on his deathbed, Ivy Quinn stole Quinn Industries from this family. From me. From Pamela. The room gasped. Pamela's lips curled into a smug smirk as she nodded solemnly, adding, "We tried to protect the legacy. She took it anyway." Ivy's breath left her in a rush, her voice barely rising above the murmurs. "That's not true, none of that is true." But her words were drowned by the growing storm. Whispers hissed like serpents. "I heard she forced the board's hand. Didn't she forge something? Unbelievable. How could she do that to Judith?" Ivy took a step forward, her voice cracking. "I loved my father. He trusted me too." "Enough," Judith cut in sharply. "You've said enough, Ivy. Tonight, I reclaim what's rightfully ours." Eyes turned on her, once allies, now doubters. Skeptics. Enemies. Ivy's throat tightened. The pressure of 100 stares weighed on her shoulders like chains. Her defense sounded hollow, desperate. She could feel the ridicule slicing into her dignity. A man near the bar scoffed. "Quinn Industries won't survive with her at the helm." Laughter, cruel and echoing. Judith had done it. The trap was sprung. Ivy turned, stumbling from the ballroom as the music resumed, this time like a cruel mockery. The night air hit her like ice as she burst from the hotel, her vision blurred. She sat in her car, hands gripping the wheel, the weight of betrayal and humiliation threatening to crush her. Tears fell freely. The city lights blurred. Everyone had turned against her. Her phone buzzed. A single message from Bernard Wesley. "I need to see you. Now. It's urgent." Ivy stared at the screen, heart pounding. There was more to this. Much more. The heavy oak door to Bernard Wesley's office creaked open as Ivy stepped inside, still numb from the night's betrayal. The soft ticking of the antique clock on the wall seemed louder than it should be, marking every second of her humiliation. Bernard stood by the window, his silhouette sharp against the city skyline. He turned the moment he heard her. "Ivy, I'm glad you came." Her voice was hoarse. "You said it was urgent." He nodded, motioning toward a long, polished table stacked with folders, boxes, and a small velvet-bound journal. "Your father left this for you. I wasn't sure when, or if, I should show you. But after tonight, you need to see it all." Ivy's hands trembled as she approached, her fingers grazing the worn cover of the journal. Inside was her father's handwriting, delicate, but deliberate. A sealed envelope lay on top, addressed simply, "To Ivy, when the time is right." She opened it with shaking hands, unfolding the yellowed paper. Her father's words hit her like a thunderclap. "My dearest Ivy, if you are reading this, it means I'm no longer with you. I fear that the people closest to me may not have had pure intentions. Judith, I've suspected for years that her love was tied to the company, not to me. I hired a private investigator. What he discovered will change everything." Ivy's breath caught as she scanned the letter, each line revealing deeper betrayal. Judith's financial entanglements with a rival corporation. Secret meetings. Wire transfers. A plan to seize control of Quinn Industries and sell it piece by piece. Her father knew. And he had acted. "I chose you, Ivy. You have the strength and the heart to protect what I built. Judith will destroy it. Do not let her. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I wanted to protect you, but now, you must protect everything." Tears welled in Ivy's eyes, but behind them, something else burned, resolve. "There's more," Bernard said gently. He handed her a USB drive. Moments later, a video played on the large screen in Bernard's office. The image flickered, then sharpened into her father's familiar face, tired but clear-eyed. "Ivy, if you're watching this, trust no one but Bernard. You are the only person who can save Quinn Industries. Judith cannot be allowed to control it. I believe in you. Fight for what's yours. Fight for our legacy." Silence. Ivy stared at the screen, then stood, her voice steady. "She thought she buried me tonight. Let's give her a reason to regret that." Over the next days, Ivy and Bernard worked tirelessly, assembling an arsenal of evidence: the original will, financial statements, wire transfer receipts, the investigator's full report, and the video testimony. Dozens of copies were printed, ready to be placed in the hands of every person who had doubted her. But they needed more than paper. They needed presence, influence. And for that, Ivy turned to someone she hadn't spoken to in months. Knox Wilder. He arrived at Bernard's office unannounced, tall and composed, with that calculating gaze that had once made Ivy feel both safe and challenged. "I heard what happened," he said simply. "Judith's play was bold. Desperate. I've had my suspicions for a long time." Ivy narrowed her eyes. Why didn't you say anything? Because I didn't have proof. And you didn't trust me then. But I'm here now. A beat of silence. Then Ivy extended the folder toward him. This time, we fight together. Knox opened it, eyes scanning the documents. A slow smile curled on his lips. Let's burn her whole empire down. The ballroom looked the same. Dazzling chandeliers, soft jazz drifting through the air, flutes of champagne glistening in elegant hands. But this time, Ivy didn't walk in alone. She stepped through the doors flanked by Bernard Wesley and 3 attorneys, their presence sending a ripple of confusion through the crowd. In Ivy's hand, a leather portfolio heavy with truth. The hum of conversation faltered, replaced by the electric crackle of tension. Judith Quinn, poised once again at the center of attention, froze mid-sentence as her eyes landed on Ivy. You, she spat, mask slipping for a split second. You have no place here. Ivy's voice rang clear, steady. On the contrary. This is exactly where I belong. Judith blinked, recovering with a smile. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. It seems some people don't know when they are beaten. Actually, Ivy stepped forward. I think it's time they finally do. The room dimmed as a screen was lowered. Bernard handed a USB drive to the technician. Play it, Ivy instructed. The video began. Thomas Quinn's face flickered onto the screen, weary but resolute. His voice filled the silent hall. If you're seeing this, it means I'm gone. And it means you need to know the truth. The guests leaned in, captivated. Judith Quinn cannot be trusted. I've discovered financial ties between her and a competitor who wishes to dismantle this company. I leave Quinn Industries to my daughter, Ivy, because she's the only one who can protect it. Gasps echoed like a wave. Eyes turned to Judith and found her frozen. Ivy stepped forward, unflinching. This is the original will. Valid. Signed. Witnessed. You lied, Judith. You manipulated everyone here. But it ends tonight. She flipped open the portfolio, holding up bank statements and wire transfers. Here's proof of Judith receiving payments from Langford Holdings, our largest rival. Payments made just before my father's death. Just before she tried to steal everything. Pamela's voice broke the silence, trembling. Mom? Is this true? Judith's face crumbled. I did it for us. For the company. No, Ivy said sharply. You did it for yourself. Knox Wilder stepped forward, voice commanding. If Quinn Industries were left in Judith's hands, it would collapse in 6 months. She doesn't understand leadership, only greed. The room erupted. Where once there had been whispers of doubt, now came claps, nods, murmurs of apology. I misjudged her. She's her father's daughter after all. Judith. How could she? Judith's eyes darted wildly. You fools. She's manipulating you. Enough, Bernard said coldly. Any further interference from you, Judith, and we will file a lawsuit for fraud, defamation, and attempted corporate theft. Judith's composure shattered. She grabbed Pamela's arm, but Pamela pulled away, eyes brimming with betrayal. I believed you, Pamela whispered. You used me. Judith turned toward the door, defeated, heels clicking like gunshots across the marble floor. No one stopped her. No one followed. She left alone. And Ivy stood tall, vindicated, victorious, unbreakable. The headlines hit the city like a storm. Judith Quinn ousted in corporate scandal. Ivy Quinn restores order at Quinn Industries. From betrayal to power, the rise of Ivy Quinn. Within weeks, the tides had turned. Contracts that once slipped through Ivy's fingers came flooding back. CEOs who'd once looked down on her now extended handshakes and apologies. Strategic partnerships, long overdue, were signed in the newly renovated boardroom. Under her leadership, Quinn Industries soared higher than ever before. Ivy stood at the head of the table, poised and composed, no longer just a CEO by inheritance, she was now a leader by choice. "We don't rebuild by forgetting the past," she told her team, "but by learning from it and outgrowing it." Months later, Pamela Quinn walked into Ivy's office, her posture tense, her pride clearly bruised. Failure clung to her like a second skin. "I don't expect forgiveness," Pamela began, eyes cast downward. "But I need a fresh start. A real one." Ivy studied her, the same woman who once helped tear her down. But something in Pamela's voice held regret. And more importantly, humility. "You'll start in entry-level operations," Ivy replied coolly. "No titles. No special treatment. You want to earn something here, you'll do it the right way." Pamela nodded slowly. "Thank you." Ivy didn't smile, but her words carried weight. "Don't thank me. Just prove you've changed." As for Judith Quinn, she vanished from Houston's elite, her name now synonymous with disgrace. No more charity galas, no more media spotlights, only silence and a trail of closed doors. Her exile was complete. One evening, as the city lights shimmered beyond the office windows, Ivy stood with a glass of wine in hand. Knox Wilder leaned against the balcony railing beside her, the tension between them replaced with something calmer, mutual respect, even admiration. "I underestimated you," Knox said, glancing at her. "You didn't just survive, Ivy. You changed the game." She looked at him, eyes steady. "Surviving wasn't enough. I had to prove that I belonged here, not because I inherited it, but because I earned it." A beat of silence passed, comfortable now. "So what's next?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Whatever I build, it'll be mine. No one will ever steal it again." Their eyes met, no longer as rivals, but as equals, and maybe something more. Legacy isn't something you inherit. It's something you protect. Something you prove. And Ivy Quinn had done exactly that.